Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Hit the bell icon button so that you don't miss out any tutorial.
In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to go about downloading Bootstrap 4. So once you have your browser open, whether you're using Internet Explorer, Google, Chrome, or Safari, doesn't really matter. Just go to your search field and type Bootstrap 4. The search results will display several links. The very first one will take you to download Bootstrap. You can also use other links as well, such as you can go to GitHub and download, and others as well. But I'm going to click on the first link here, which says download Bootstrap. This takes me to the getting started page, or the download page, where I can download the version 4.0 is now available for download in several ways. So just scroll down a little bit and you'll see the download source button here. And what this will do is simply allow you to download a zip file, and you'll be able to download everything, such as Sass, JavaScript, documentation files, setup files, your CSS, JavaScript, and so on. So simply click on download source, and this opens up your Windows Explorer. Navigate to the folder that you wish to download into. So for instance, in my case, let me scroll up here so you can see, since I'm using a personal web server, I'm downloading it within the Bootstrap 4 folder. And this is the folder that I've created already within the HTDocs folder here. So if you were to use XAMPP server, for example, make sure that you create a folder within HTDocs. So in my instance, I created a folder called Bootstrap 4. And notice within this folder, there's already a folder called images, right, that I've placed, which contains certain images. But you want to download zip file into any of these folders, right? You can download into the XAMPP install 1 folder, for example, or you can pick and choose any of these folders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create or download it into my HTDocs folder. So I simply select the HTDocs. Here's the file name, click save, and this is going to download Bootstrap 4. So it's only a small download, about 3 megabytes. As soon as it's downloaded, so once it's downloaded, let me navigate to my Windows Explorer so you can see. And within my HTDocs folder, notice here's the Bootstrap 4.0 version. So all I have to do is just simply right click on this file, and I can simply choose to extract the files, and I'm going to say extract files. And this brings up the dialog box where I can specify where I need to extract these files to. I'm simply going to click OK because I like to extract all these files within the same folder. So notice as soon as I extract files, a new folder is created called bootstrap.4.0-alpha.2, and all of these files will be saved within this folder. So if I were to open this folder, for example, and expand the Bootstrap 4 folder, you'll notice all of these files are being extracted within this folder. So just a quick lesson on how to go about downloading Bootstrap 4. So practice, and let's move to the next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to organize our files and folders once you've downloaded Bootstrap and extracted those files. So let's navigate to our Windows Explorer, since we already downloaded the Bootstrap 4.0 alpha version in the previous lesson. Here I'm simply going to demonstrate which files do we really need for this course for now, and then we'll organize them into our folders. So let's navigate to our Explorer, and within this Bootstrap folder, once again, all of these files were extracted in the previous lesson, and I've demonstrated that already. So here within my HTDocs folder, there's a folder called Bootstrap 4, which contains, for example, the image folder. Now notice I've already placed the image folder with a bunch of random images, and we'll use these images once we start coding our responsive website in subsequent lessons. So you can use images as per your own liking, or any number of images, but for the purposes of this course, I'm going to use these 5 images. So within my Bootstrap folder, I have an image folder, and I also need to place additional folders within the Bootstrap folder here. In other words, I need a couple of more folders, and I'm going to bring these folders from the downloaded Bootstrap 4 files. So let me show you this. In fact, let's expand the Bootstrap 4.0 alpha.2, there's a folder within the Bootstrap Alpha 2 folder, which is called dist or DIST. If you click on it, notice it contains two files, CSS and JS. We would need these files in order to start creating our website. In other words, think of this as a prerequisite, right? We will need the Bootstrap files. There are other files as well. Obviously, since we downloaded the entire Bootstrap repository, it also downloaded, for example, the SCSS files, the JavaScript files, grunt, and documentation as well. But for our purpose, we're simply going to look for this folder called dist, and within this folder there are two files, CSS and JS. So all you have to do at this point is simply copy these files, or you can move them as well. It's up to you. Typically, I tend to copy it so that my originally downloaded files do not change. So just select these two files, right click, and drag them to the Bootstrap 4 folder under the htdocs. And I'm simply going to copy, and notice now the Bootstrap 4 folder has 3 subfolders. And if you're not using a personal web server or a server such as the XAMPP, for example, or the open source Apache server or any other server, if you're not using any of these servers, you can just place these folders anywhere on your computer and they'll work the same way. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. But the important thing, once again, is to make sure that your CSS and JS folders must reside within the Bootstrap 4 folder, and of course the images must be also kept within the same folder. And there's a reason why. This is because when we open our editor, which I'm going to show you next, in fact, all of these files are automatically picked up by the editor, so you don't have to worry about giving longer path names, for example, or for instance, if you were to save this JS folder into a different folder, such as XAMPP install 1, and when you're coding, you'd have to reference or create a file path that references the XAMPP install 1 folder. So real benefit is to place all these folders within one single folder called Bootstrap 4, so that when we're coding, it's easier to work with. So it's a good practice. So once you have the CSS, image, and JS folder within the Bootstrap 4 folder, next we need to open our editor so that we can begin building our site. There's several editors out there, such as Sublime. You can use Notepad, Notepad++, for example. You can use Atom. In this course, I've selected to use Atom editor. It's a very powerful editor. You can always go online and download Atom as well. Let me in fact show you this. So let me switch to our browser here. So I'm going to say download Atom editor, or you can just type something to that effect, and the very first link obviously is the atom.io. So just simply navigate to this site and download using Windows installer. If you're using other platforms such as Mac, for example, you can download Atom editor for your own platform as well. So all you have to do is just click on other platforms, and this will take you to the download page where you can simply pick and choose as to whichever version or platform that you wish to download. So just wanted to quickly show you that you can use Atom editor. So let's go back. But for Windows, the link is pretty straightforward. You just download it, install it, and when you open it, it'll look something like this. Okay, so let's navigate back to our Windows Explorer. Here's our Bootstrap 4 folder, which contains these 3 subfolders. And each of these folders have certain files, right? So for example, the CSS has a bunch of files. The image folder, of course, has our images. And the JavaScript or the JS folder has a bunch of files as well. So next, simply right click on Bootstrap 4. You can do this through Atom also, but shortcut is of course right click on the folder that you wish to open with your editor. And there's an option called Open with Atom. This will only be displayed once you have Atom installed. Okay, so keep that in mind. So simply click on Open with Atom, and this is going to open the editor. And once the Atom editor is open, notice it brings up all the folder and the subfolders. So here's my Bootstrap 4 folder, for example. If I were to expand this, notice I have my CSS folder, I have my images folder, and of course my JS folder as well. So now it's much easier to work with when you have all these files that are required to be used with Bootstrap 4. Alright, great. So we have the files. Next, we need to create two files. First, our standard HTML file, which we will use to start coding our HTML. And then we need to create a CSS file for our cascading style sheet so that we can use that file to create our selector elements and so on. So to do this, simply right click on Bootstrap, for example, and click New File. And Atom asks us enter the path for the new file. I'm going to call this, let's say, just give it any name, I guess, 3r.html. Hit the enter key and notice a new file is created. Of course, it's blank. Same thing, right click on Bootstrap 4 because I'm going to create the files before we even start coding. So choose new file one more time, and this time I'm going to call it 3r.css. And you can call it and give it any name, but make sure you use the extensions, right? So for HTML, we use the .html. If you were to create a CSS file, make sure you use the .css. You can also create .php and any other files as well. But for now, for the purposes of this course, we are creating an HTML file and a CSS file. So once you've given it a name, hit the enter key. Perfect. So here are the two files, the 3r.html and 3r.css. Of course, both of these are blank and there's nothing in it. Perfect. So in this lesson, I simply wanted to demonstrate how to organize our files and folders, how to move our files into the right folder, and how to open up our editor and bring in all these files so that it's easier for us to start building a responsive website in Bootstrap 4. So I hope this helps. Practice, and let's move to the next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to link our files together. In other words, we will be linking the HTML and CSS with some of the Bootstrap files that we downloaded. So this is, of course, pretty basic because once you start building your web page, you need to declare the doc type and, of course, our HTML tags such as the head tags and the body tags and so on. So let me go ahead, and in this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate from scratch creating our basic website or web page rather using Bootstrap 4. So let's begin. Declare our first tag. I'm using the Atom editor, by the way. In the previous lesson, I did mention where to go and download Atom for yourself. It's free. You can just Google it, download it, and install it on your own computer, whether you're using Windows, Mac. It doesn't matter. It's available on every platform. And it's a great editor to use because it comes with great functionality, especially if you are a developer or a coder. Atom is really helpful. So let's begin. Do the exclamation mark and then do doc type, HTML, close the tag, and then of course our HTML. We're going to give a language here first. This would equal English, and you can declare other languages as well. Next, we open up our head tag, and this is where essentially our code begins, but I'm going to put a comment here quickly just so that we know what's going on. So the required meta tags that I'm going to place in just a moment always come first. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'll place a comment so that you don't forget. So let's begin with our meta tags. Our first meta tag would be our character set, and this would be the UTF-8, which is the standard one. And next meta tag would be the name, and here I'm going to define the viewport. The content of this viewport would be the width, equals device width. Set the initial scale to 1 equals 1, and then I'm also going to give it a shrink to fit to no. So this would equal, just close the tag here for this meta tag, and I'm going to do one more, right? So just do a meta, and instead of name I'm going to do HTTP equiv, and this would contain the compatibility settings. So I'm going to specify the x-ua compatible, and the content would be for, let's say, Internet Explorer, right? So if I'm using IE Edge, and by the way, in Bootstrap 4, the support for IE 7 or IE 8 is no longer available. Okay, so keep that in mind as we move along, but we can use Edge, okay, which is the current browser from Microsoft. Great. So once we have the meta tags, next I'm going to start creating the Bootstrap CSS, right? So let's go ahead and let me put a comment here quickly. And this is where we'll bring in the Bootstrap files, okay? Bootstrap CSS files, and we'll create the link tags here basically, okay? So this is the idea, that we create the link here. So open the tag, use link, rel, and then the style sheet. And of course the style sheet that we're using, we'll use the href tag. And in this instance, the style sheet, of course, we already created, called 3r.css. Notice in the navigation pane here, right, we have the 3r.css. Obviously, this file is empty at this point, right? There's nothing, or no code, or no selectors, or nothing within the 3r.css. But we will reference it here as our main style sheet. So within our HTML document, when we were to view this page, we are defining now that, hey, wait a minute, this is our CSS, and that's where you need to go. So to link CSS, we just give it our folder name first, and then of course the bootstrap.min.css. Now at this point I did not specify the 3r.css, which I'm going to do it later, okay? Because this is the Bootstrap CSS, not your actual folder or your own CSS at this point. First we use our main style sheet, the Bootstrap framework, and then later on we'll reference our 3r.css. And in fact, let me do that right here. So just put a quick comment. So custom CSS. Let's fix this quick. Give it a space here. And let me close this tag because Adam doesn't recognize this. Adam says, wait a minute here, the tag is still open. How can I give this a comment? Great. So once we have this comment, create another link. And this would be for our own style sheet, which is 3r.css. So this will be style sheet. And then of course href, and here we specify the, not the folder, we just do the direct reference to the 3r.css. Close the tag. Perfect. And we have our head tag closed and the HTML tag closed as well. So far what we have done is simply created a simple HTML, and we did three things here essentially. First, define the meta tags. Then the reference to the Bootstrap CSS file. So basically what's happening here is we're taking the path here CSS and then using the bootstrap.min.css. And this is coming from our CSS folder. So if I expand the CSS folder, notice here's the file called bootstrap.min.css. If I were to click on this file, you'll notice the contents of this file. And if I scroll to the right, it's a fairly long piece of code that you can see. So this was downloaded once we installed Bootstrap 4 Alpha, okay? If you recall from our previous lessons. And it's contained within the CSS folder. So if I were to navigate back to my 3r.html, code, this is how we reference it. And then the third piece of this particular code is our custom CSS, which simply contains a reference to our own 3r.css. And at this point, 3r.css is empty, right? Because we did not create any styling for our web page at this point. All we did so far was just create our head tags, and then within the head tag we specify the meta and then a couple of links. Great. Let's continue on. All right, the next step is for us to open up our body tags, right? This is where our let's say the jQuery script and then the Bootstrap JS would go. So let me go ahead and enter a couple of spaces after the head tag and open up our body tag right here. And within the body tag, I'm going to specify, let me go ahead and put a comment here first. So this would be jQuery first, so we remember, and then Bootstrap JS. Okay, great. So once I have this, next I'm going to specify a couple of scripts, right? So just script and then give it a source. And this script is coming from HTTPS. You can always look this up, by the way. I've been doing this for a while, so I know. So this will be ajax.googleapis.com/ajax libs jQuery, and I think the version that we're using for Bootstrap 4 alpha is 2.1.4, and then jQuery.min.js, and then close the tag, and then close the script tag as well. Now notice this jQuery.min.js is an external link, right? Because we specify the fully qualified name here. So once we have this script here, let me go ahead and do another script. Open up a tag. So use script. Source would be our local script. So this time I'm going to use the bootstrap min.js. So here I'm going to reference the JavaScript. Okay. So the folder is JS, and you can see this in the Explorer in the navigation pane right here on the left, right? So this is our folder JS, and then here's the file that we're trying to reference. So it's bootstrap.min.js. So right after JS, I'm going to type bootstrap.min.js. Perfect. And close the script tag. And our body tag is closed, and of course our HTML is also closed. So here, so far, what I've done is simply created our HTML5 based on the Bootstrap 4 alpha. So let me go ahead and save this. So do a Control S on the keyboard, or you can use the file menu as well. So next, let me navigate to my browser and just take a look at what 3r.html looks like, right? So let's open up my browser here. And let me navigate to my local host and specify the Bootstrap 4 folder. And at this point, notice all I have is the list of folders that are contained within the Bootstrap 4 folder. Okay. So at this point, if I were to click on 3r.html, notice nothing is going to be displayed because we did not place anything in this file. All we did was to create the 3r.html. So let's switch back to our editor. So there's nothing here. There's no head tag. There's no title. There's nothing. There's no text, right? So it's just the backend functionality so far. So in this lesson, I just wanted to demonstrate how to link our CSS within our HTML file. So I hope this helps.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, do give us a thumbs up and share it. Also check out amazing discounts and offers on our premium courses in the description below.